The faint signal. The galaxy was vast, stretching across an infinite sea of stars. Space was quiet, peaceful. But every so often, something would break the silence. The signal. A call for help. But this was no ordinary distress call. The Galactic Council, a powerful organization controlling thousands of worlds, had been monitoring space for centuries. They had seen many things, countless battles, abandoned planets, and lost civilizations. But this was different. A faint, almost inaudible distress signal was picked up by the Council's monitoring station. The signal was weak, so weak that it barely reached their listening posts on the edge of the galaxy. At first, it seemed like nothing more than static, a leftover signal from a long-forgotten time. But the more the analysts listened, the more certain they became. This wasn't a mistake. The signal was coming from a planet that had been marked as uninhabitable for centuries, Earth. The coordinates matched perfectly. But how could this be? Earth had been destroyed. The history books said it was gone. Everyone knew it. Commander Valrin, leader of the Galactic Council's exploration fleet, sat in his command chair aboard the Vanguard, a massive, sleek starship. He stared at the flashing red light on the console in front of him, signaling a new message. The crew aboard his ship had been tracking signals across the galaxy, gathering information on possible new civilizations or threats. But Earth was not on their radar. "What is this?" Valrin muttered to himself as his eyes narrowed at the coordinates. He had heard the stories. Earth was once a thriving planet, home to an ancient civilization full of humans. But centuries ago, a cataclysmic event had wiped them out. At least that was what the Council believed. And yet, here it was, a signal coming from Earth. "Alert the fleet. Prepare for immediate departure," Valrin ordered. As his officers scrambled to make preparations, a sense of unease settled over the room. The signal was too faint to be clear, and the transmission was coming from deep within Earth's ruined atmosphere. But the planet had long since been abandoned by any intelligent life. There should have been nothing left. "Commander," said Officer Rika, the ship's communications expert, "we've traced the signal back. It's coming from a location near the old ruins on Earth's surface. But the signal's strength is incredibly low. It doesn't make sense." "Have you pinpointed the source?" Valrin asked, leaning forward in his seat. Rika nodded. "It's coming from underground, in a region where no structures were ever recorded. The readings, they're strange." Valrin felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just an old distress call. There was something more to it, something hidden beneath the surface of Earth. Could it be a trap? A weapon left behind by the long-gone humans? Or was it something else? Something unexpected? "Ready the fleet," Valrin ordered. "We're going in." Meanwhile, on a nearby alien ship, Captain Verka of the Tazruan Empire was receiving the same signal. His species had been at odds with the Galactic Council for centuries, and the idea of Earth's return stirred something deep inside him. The Tazruan had always considered themselves the dominant force in the galaxy, and the return of a long-lost human fleet could be a disaster for their plans. "Tazruan Empire fleet, prepare to move out." Verka's orders were clear. He had his own ideas about Earth and its mysterious signal. They had already reconnaissance drones out to investigate. But now, he would lead a fleet to ensure the humans never returned. Verka's mind raced. If Earth was truly alive, if humans had somehow survived, this could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. He was not about to let that happen. He would find the source of the signal, and if there was a fleet waiting, he would destroy it. As the Vanguard and the Tazruan fleet made their way toward Earth, the signal grew stronger, but its message remained unclear. The planet, though shrouded in mystery, was showing signs of life, signs of something waiting beneath the surface. In the cold, endless void of space, Valrin stood at the command console, his heart pounding. What was Earth hiding? Why had it sent a signal after all these years of silence? Suddenly, a voice broke through the static, echoing across the communication lines. "This is Earth. "We are still here." The message was simple, yet it sent a shockwave through the fleet. The implications were clear. Earth had not been destroyed. The humans had not perished. They had been waiting, hidden, silent for centuries. And now, they were speaking again. Valrin stared at the message, unable to comprehend the weight of what it meant. "What does this mean?" Rika whispered, her voice full of disbelief. "We're about to find out," Valrin said softly. "Set course for Earth. Full speed ahead." But the galaxy was not ready for what was about to happen. As the fleets continued toward Earth, the signal grew stronger and strange readings began to appear. There was something deeply unnerving about Earth's return. The Tazrun fleet was already in motion, determined to reach the planet first, but Valrin had a sinking feeling that no one was prepared for what awaited them. The Galactic Council had made a fatal mistake by dismissing Earth as a non-threat. Now they would learn that they had underestimated humanity, just when the galaxy thought it was safe. And so, with the dark expanse of space stretching out before them, both fleets raced toward the planet that had once been written off as dead, toward Earth, where secrets long buried were about to shake the stars. Would the fleet find what they expected? Or would Earth's long-hidden surprise change the course of history forever? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The universe was about to feel the impact of Earth's return. The distance between the two fleets and Earth seemed to shrink with each passing moment. The Vanguard and the Tazruan fleet both cut through the cold emptiness of space, their engines thrumming as they closed in on the coordinates of the mysterious signal. For Commander Valrin, the journey felt like an eternity. His mind raced with questions that had no answers. How could Earth still be alive? What had happened to its civilization? And what were they going to find when they finally arrived? The closer they got to Earth, the more the signal seemed to shift, growing clearer, but increasingly distorted at the same time. Something was out of place. The signal didn't make sense, and neither did the readings coming from the planet. As the Vanguard entered the Earth's atmosphere, the view from the bridge was stunning. The planet below appeared desolate, its surface covered in deep, unnatural scars. Wreckage, the remains of old human cities, were scattered across the surface. It looked like the planet had been through some kind of apocalyptic event, as if a great war had once ravaged it. Valrin's heart tightened at the sight. What happened here? Rika muttered, her voice full of disbelief. This isn't what the records said. Valrin glanced at her. His thoughts echoed her words. Earth was supposed to be a wasteland, abandoned for centuries. But what they were seeing was nothing like the ancient maps had suggested. The ruins seemed far too recent. It looked like the planet had been through something far more recent than the destruction of its human inhabitants. "Begin the descent," Valrin ordered, trying to mask his uncertainty. "Prepare for landing. We need to get to the source of that signal." As the Vanguard's crew worked to land, the Tazruan fleet, led by Captain Verka, was just moments behind. Their ship's sensors pinged as they neared Earth. The Tazrun had been investigating the same distress signal, but their motives were far less innocent than Valrin's. While Valrin hoped for answers, Verka feared the worst. Earth's return could be a threat to his empire, and he had no intention of letting it rise again. "Captain, we're almost in position," one of Verka's officers reported. "There's a strange energy reading coming from the planet's surface. It's unlike anything we've encountered." Verka's brow furrowed as he adjusted his seat. His fingers hovered over the tactical control panel, activating the weapon systems. "Prepare for all contingencies. This planet may be more than we bargained for." Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth, beneath the ruins and scars of a once thriving world, an unexpected stir began to spread. The ancient machines of war, forgotten and buried beneath the ground for centuries, slowly began to awaken. Their long-dormant engines hummed to life, sending powerful energy signals into the sky. In the heart of a desolate city, hidden under layers of rubble, a massive underground facility began to glow faintly. It was a bunker, built by humans long ago, when they knew the end was near. But what was inside this bunker? Could it be a remnant of humanity's secret weapon? Or perhaps something even more dangerous? Something that would change everything for the galaxy. The Vanguard was the first to land, its landing thrusters kicking up clouds of dust as it touched down on Earth's surface. Valoran, along with his crew, quickly suited up and prepared to disembark. He could feel his heart racing. The air was thick with tension. They had arrived, but they were still far from the truth. What had they come here for? Why was Earth sending out this signal? And who, or what, was still hiding beneath the surface? Prepare to disembark, Valoran said, his voice steady but firm. Keep alert. We don't know what we'll find down there. As the crew filed out of the ship and onto the desolate landscape, the silence of Earth hung heavy in the air. The ruined cities stood as silent witnesses to a history long lost. Valoran's boots crunched on the dry ground as he led the way. The sky overhead was thick with dark clouds, casting an ominous shadow over the barren land. It felt like the planet itself was holding its breath. Back aboard the Vanguard, Rika and the rest of the crew worked frantically to analyze the signal further. Commander, the signal's still active. It's coming from deep beneath the surface. We have to find the source. Rika's voice crackled over the comms. Any signs of life? Valoran asked. No, nothing. The surface looks abandoned, but we're getting strange readings. She hesitated. It's almost like something's been waiting. Valoran's chest tightened. Something's been waiting. What could it be? As they ventured deeper into the ruins, Valoran couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap, a carefully laid trap by whoever or whatever still controlled this forsaken world. Suddenly, there was a loud noise, a deep rumble from the earth beneath their feet. It was as if the planet itself was shifting, awakening from a long sleep. The ground shook, and for a moment, everything seemed to tremble in anticipation. Valoran's hand instinctively reached for the weapon at his side. His crew looked around nervously. What was that? Rika asked, her voice tense. Move forward, Valoran ordered, his voice commanding. Stay alert. A few kilometers ahead, the ruins gave way to an open area, an ancient military installation. The walls were crumbling, covered in vines and dust, but inside, strange electrical signals pulsed in the air. Valoran's breath caught in his throat. This place felt wrong, as if it had been designed for something far more than just a human military base. Suddenly, they reached the entrance. It was sealed shut, the metal rusted and worn with age, but it was still intact. The energy readings coming from behind the door were off the charts. Something powerful, something alive, was buried within. Open the doors, Valoran commanded. His heart pounded in his chest as the crew worked to access the hidden facility. And then, with a loud clang, the doors slowly creaked open. Inside, they found themselves staring at a massive control room. The room was filled with strange technology, far more advanced than anything they had seen before. But it wasn't the technology that made Valoran's blood run cold. It was the faint whispers of voices echoing through the walls. Was this Earth's final secret? Had the humans left something behind? Something that had been waiting for the right moment to wake up? Before they could investigate further, a voice rang out through their comms. Verka, the captain of the Tazrun fleet. This is Tazrun territory now, Commander. Stand down. Valoran's grip tightened on his weapon. The stage was set for a collision, one that would decide the fate of Earth, and possibly the entire galaxy. The door to the ancient underground facility opened with a deafening groan, its rusted hinges protesting against centuries of neglect. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of forgotten technology. Valoran's crew, weapons drawn and senses heightened, stepped cautiously across the threshold, their boots echoing in the empty chamber. The strange whispers they had heard earlier seemed to intensify as they ventured deeper into the room. It was as though the very walls were alive, watching them, waiting. Valoran motioned for the crew to fan out, his eyes scanning the darkened interior. Strange, glowing symbols adorned the walls, and massive consoles, now ancient and decayed, flickered with faint, erratic light. The technology was unlike anything they had ever seen before, and it was clear that whoever had left it here had been far more advanced than the current civilizations of the galaxy. "What is all this?" Rika muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. She had never seen anything like it, and it made her uneasy. There were faint signs of activity. The hum of forgotten energy still pulsated in the walls, as if the facility had been waiting for something. For them. "This is beyond anything we've encountered before," Valrin said, his voice low. "We need to find out what happened here." As they moved further into the facility, the air grew colder, and the sense of unease grew stronger. The whispers in the walls began to take on more substance, becoming clearer with each step they took. It was almost as though the facility itself had a mind, a consciousness, beckoning them deeper. "Commander," Rika said, her voice shaking, "the readings are off the charts. There's something alive down here." Valrin stopped in his tracks. His heart pounded in his chest. The signal, which had once seemed distant and cold, was now pulsating with life, growing stronger and more insistent. Whatever had been buried here on Earth wasn't just technology, it was something much more. He nodded to Rika. "Lead the way. Let's see what we're dealing with." Meanwhile, aboard the Tazrun fleet, Captain Verka paced nervously in his command center. The Tazrun had arrived just moments after Valrin's ship had landed, and now they were in position to take control of the situation. Verka's thoughts were filled with both fear and greed. Earth was supposed to be a desolate, forgotten world. But now, the distress signal had led both him and the Vanguard here. And what they found was beyond anything they could have imagined. "Get me a direct line to Valrin," Verka barked. Now. His communications officer scrambled to comply, but the signal was intermittent. Something was disrupting the transmission, something powerful emanating from the surface. "Sir, we can't get through. The energy readings are messing with our systems." Verka clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. He couldn't let the Vanguard claim Earth's secrets for themselves. If there was something powerful down there, something that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy, he wasn't about to let it slip away. "Prepare landing forces," Verka ordered coldly. "We're going down." Back on Earth, Valrin's team had made their way through the dark, crumbling corridors of the facility. The energy pulses were growing stronger, leading them to the heart of the structure. It felt like the walls themselves were pulsing with life, like the building was alive, waiting for the right moment to strike. The crew was tense, every footstep more hesitant than the last, as if they were walking into an ancient trap set long ago by the original inhabitants of Earth. Then suddenly, the ground beneath their feet trembled. It was a low, rumbling growl, like a sleeping giant stirring after a long, deep slumber. "What's happening?" Rika shouted, gripping her weapon tighter. The entire room seemed to vibrate, the consoles flickering violently as the walls began to crack open in places. The whispers intensified, now sounding more like a chorus of voices, angry, ancient, and powerful. "It's awakening," Valrin whispered, his eyes wide. He could feel the change in the air, the sudden shift in energy. Whatever had been dormant here for centuries was now fully awake. The entire facility seemed to groan in response, and a massive metallic sound filled the room as a hidden compartment slowly began to rise from the floor. It was like a massive elevator, and within it, something that looked like a weapon. Ancient, but alive. And it was staring at them with glowing eyes. Before anyone could react, the weapon activated. The humming grew louder, its energy building as it powered up. A neon blue light pulsed across the surface, casting eerie shadows across the room. "We have to get out of here," Rika screamed. But before anyone could move, the ground split open beneath their feet, and a massive wave of energy shot up from the core of the facility. The blast knocked everyone off their feet, sending them flying against the walls. Outside, Captain Verka's fleet had finally landed. His forces quickly spread out across the barren landscape, moving toward the ancient facility. They had to be the first to claim whatever lay beneath Earth's surface. But as they neared the structure, they felt it. An overwhelming surge of energy that crackled through the air. "What is that?" One of Verka's officers gasped, watching in awe as the energy rippled through the air, distorting everything in its path. Verka's eyes narrowed. He was too late. The awakening had already begun. Back inside, Valorant and his crew struggled to regain their bearings. The floor trembled beneath them, and the humming sound grew to an unbearable level. The facility's control systems seemed to be malfunctioning, and every attempt to gain control of the situation only made things worse. "We need to get to the control room," Valorant shouted above the noise. "There's no time." The team sprinted through the corridors, the structure shaking violently with every step. The weapon, the thing they had awakened, was becoming more powerful with each passing moment. Just as they reached the control room, a massive explosion erupted behind them. The building was collapsing, and they were running out of time. Valorant pushed forward, his mind set on one goal: survive. But it was clear now that whatever Earth had left behind was no ordinary weapon. It was something far more dangerous, far more alive than anyone had ever anticipated. And in the distance, the Tazrun fleet was drawing closer. Who would control Earth's secret? Would it be Valorant, or would Verka's forces claim victory? The galaxy's fate rested on the next few moments. The race for Earth's most dangerous secret had just begun. The air was thick with tension as the massive Tazrun fleet began to deploy from their ships, landing near the ruined facility. Their forces moved swiftly, armed with advanced weaponry and equipped with technology that outclassed anything Valorant's crew had at their disposal. The sound of boots hitting the cracked earth echoed across the battlefield, signaling the imminent clash for Earth's dark secret. Inside the facility, Valorant and his crew were still reeling from the violent blast that had nearly consumed them. The ground beneath their feet was shaking uncontrollably, as if the very planet itself was awakening from a long slumber. The whispers that had once sounded like distant murmurs were now deafening, their ancient, cryptic messages reverberating through every corridor, every wall, every soul in the building. "We need to get out now," Rika shouted as she held her rifle tightly, her eyes scanning the flickering lights above. "If we don't find a way to shut this thing down, we're all dead." But Valorant didn't respond right away. His eyes were locked onto the massive, glowing machine in the center of the control room. The weapon was still humming, its energy building in intensity. It was almost as if the ancient technology was alive, reacting to the presence of outsiders, waiting for the moment to unleash its full potential. The weapon seemed to pulse in response to their movements, a soft electrical hum coming from the core of the structure. The blue energy that radiated from it seemed to reach out, consuming everything in its path, filling the room with an oppressive weight. This was no ordinary machine. It was alive, responding to the invading forces. "We don't have much time," Valorant said, snapping back to reality. His voice was calm, but edged with urgency. "We need to find a way to stop it before the Tazrun take control." At that moment, the facility's walls trembled once again, and the ground beneath them rumbled as a new force approached. Valorant's heart sank as he saw the Tazrun soldiers flooding into the facility's outer chamber, their weapons drawn and their eyes burning with intent. The first wave of Tazrun soldiers stormed into the main hall, led by Captain Verka himself. He moved with an air of confidence, his soldiers falling into formation behind him. The Tazrun fleet had already begun establishing a perimeter, ensuring that no one could escape. Earth was no longer a forgotten world. It was now the prize they had all been waiting for. Valorant's crew retreated further into the depths of the facility, desperately searching for a way to shut down the machine. Every step was filled with danger, as the Tazrun forces were closing in on them. They knew they couldn't run forever. "We need to buy ourselves more time," Rika said, her voice trained. "I'll cover the exit. You guys find a way to disable that weapon." Valorant nodded, his eyes scanning the darkened corridors. "Hurry, we don't have much time." With Rika standing guard, Valrin and the rest of the crew sprinted toward the control center, their hearts pounding in their chests. The corridors seemed endless, twisting and turning in ways that defied logic. The ancient facility was designed to disorient, to confuse intruders, but Valrin wasn't about to let that stop him. He could feel it in his bones. The weapon was close. They had to reach it before the Tazarun got their hands on it. Suddenly, a deep, bone-chilling growl reverberated through the air. The ground shook beneath them, and the walls seemed to close in. Valrin's breath caught in his throat as a massive mechanical arm emerged from the depths of the facility, its glowing eyes locked on the team. It was no longer just a weapon. It had become something far more terrifying. It was alive, and it was coming for them. The metallic behemoth moved with a terrifying speed, its massive arms swinging toward the crew. Valrin barely had time to react before the room was filled with the deafening sound of tearing metal. The creature's strength was unimaginable. It tore through the walls as though they were paper, its claws reaching for them with brutal force. "Get down," Valrin shouted as he dove behind a pile of rubble, narrowly avoiding the swipe of the creature's claw. Rika's voice echoed through the comms, her warning clear. "Verka's forces are closing in. They're almost here." Valrin's heart raced. The Tazarun were almost at the control center, and now this monstrous machine was blocking their path. The crew was trapped in a room with no way out. The whispers in the walls were now screaming, the sound like 1,000 voices trapped in agony. "We need to shut it down," Valrin shouted, his voice filled with urgency. He pulled a nearby console from the wreckage and connected it to his datapad. The controls flickered, but nothing responded. The machine was too powerful. The energy it was giving off was disrupting everything around them. As the creature advanced, Valrin's mind raced. He was running out of options, and the Tazarun were closing in. He had to make a decision, one that could change everything. "Rika, cover me," Valrin ordered. "I'll try to trigger the shutdown manually." Rika didn't hesitate. She took her position, keeping her rifle trained on the advancing enemy. The sound of distant footsteps told her that the Tazarun were almost there, and every second counted. Valrin approached the machine, feeling the intensity of its energy as he stepped closer. It was alive. It was watching him, waiting. His fingers moved quickly, trying to find the right console to access. The machine's hum grew louder, like a roar, vibrating through the entire facility. The walls were practically shaking now, and the ground trembled with every pulse of energy. With a deep breath, Valrin placed his hand on the central console. He could feel the power surging through him as the machine's interface began to light up, responding to his touch. But the resistance was brutal. It was almost as if the machine didn't want to let go, like it was fighting back. Just then, the doors to the control room burst open. Captain Verka and his soldiers stormed in, weapons aimed at Valrin and his crew. The Tazarun were upon them. "Step away from the machine." Verka's voice rang out, cold and commanding. "This planet is ours now." But Valrin wasn't done yet. With a final, desperate effort, he pressed a sequence of buttons on the console. The entire facility shook as the machine's power surged. Then, suddenly, everything went dark. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. The facility went silent, the hum of the machine dying down to a faint whisper. Valrin's crew exchanged nervous glances. Had they succeeded? Had they stopped the machine? But as the darkness enveloped them, one thing was certain. The battle for Earth was far from over. Darkness swallowed the facility, leaving only the flickering glow of emergency lights. The once deafening hum of the machine had fallen silent, but an eerie tension filled the air. Valrin's fingers hovered over the console, his breath unsteady. Had he shut it down? Or had he triggered something far worse? Behind him, Rika kept her rifle trained on Captain Verka and his soldiers. The Tazarun warriors were frozen in place, momentarily stunned by the sudden blackout. But their hesitation wouldn't last long. "Valrin, whatever you did, I hope it worked," Rika whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant creaks of shifting metal. Valrin took a step back from the console. "I don't know," he admitted, "but something feels wrong." Then, the silence was shattered. A deep metallic groan rumbled through the walls, vibrating the floor beneath their feet. It wasn't coming from the console. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the facility. Then came the sound of movement, a heavy mechanical shifting, as if something massive was waking up after a long slumber. The whispers in the walls returned, more frantic than ever. But this time, they weren't just whispers. They were warnings. Verka's eyes narrowed. His soldiers shifted uneasily, gripping their weapons tighter. "What did you do, human?" The Tazruan captain growled, stepping forward. Before Valrin could answer, the floor cracked beneath them. A pillar of blue light shot upward from the depths of the facility, illuminating the chamber with an unearthly glow. A roar, deep and mechanical, echoed through the halls. Dust and debris rained down as something massive stirred beneath their feet. Then the facility came alive. The walls pulsed with energy. The ground trembled. And then the machine spoke. "System reboot complete. Earth defense protocols all in line." A deep hum filled the air once again, growing into a thunderous roar. The energy pulsing through the facility surged into a crescendo, and then a giant metallic hand burst through the floor. The Tazrun warriors stumbled back in shock as a titanic war machine began to rise from the depths. Its towering frame gleamed with ancient power, its glowing red eyes locking onto the intruders in the room. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a guardian, a relic of a long-forgotten time, a creation of the ancient human warlords who had once ruled the stars. The whispers in the walls became screams. "Activating primary defense system. Non-human threats detected. Engaging hostiles." The war machine's arms unfolded, revealing massive cannons charged with energy. The air crackled with power, and in that moment, everyone understood. The facility wasn't just a research station. It was a tomb for an ancient superweapon. And Valrin had just woken it up. The Tazrun captain's confidence vanished. His soldiers took nervous steps back, their weapons seeming pitiful in comparison to the colossus rising before them. "Fall back," Verka ordered. "Fall back now." But it was too late. The war machine fired. A beam of pure energy erupted from its cannons, tearing through the chamber. The impact sent shockwaves through the walls, vaporizing the first row of Tazrun soldiers. Screams filled the air as the remaining invaders scrambled to escape. The machine turned its glowing red eyes toward Valrin's crew. For a breathless moment, it hesitated. Then, its gaze shifted away. The machine recognized them. It knew. They were not the enemy. But the Tazrun were. And Earth's ancient guardian was angry. Outside the facility, the Tazrun fleet was preparing for war. The mothership hovered above the surface, its weapons primed to obliterate whatever resistance remained. But before they could fire, the ground split open. The war machine emerged, rising from the ruins in a storm of dust and lightning. Its colossal frame stood against the Tazrun warships, dwarfing even the largest of their vessels. Valrin and his crew watched from a distance, awestruck. "By the stars," Rika whispered, "this isn't just a guardian. This is a Titan." Valrin finished. The Tazrun fleet opened fire. The Titan raised its arm, and a massive energy shield flared to life, absorbing the onslaught. Then, with a single swipe, it obliterated an entire warship in one blow. The Tazrun forces, once so sure of their victory, panicked. This wasn't just another lost planet. This was Earth, and it wasn't defenseless anymore. The battle was just beginning. The ground beneath them shook violently, sending ripples of dust and debris into the air as the Titan's colossal feet pounded forward. The once dominant Tazrun fleet, now visibly faltering, could hardly comprehend the sheer force they were facing. The Earth's ancient war machine, a relic from a time long forgotten, had been dormant for millennia. But now, it was awake. And it was angry. From within the heart of the ruined facility, Valrin, Rika, and the others stood frozen, watching the carnage unfold in awe. The enormous Titan moved with purpose, its enormous body slicing through the air like a storm. The warships above, initially so confident in their strength, now appeared like helpless toys in the path of a force beyond their comprehension. "This is impossible," muttered Rika, her voice a mix of disbelief and wonder. She had seen destruction in her lifetime, but nothing like this, nothing that made the Tazarun seem so small. Valrin swallowed hard, his eyes wide as he watched the Titan's arms lift high, its cannons glowing with an otherworldly energy, its Earth's wrath. The Tazarun have no idea what they've unleashed. The Titan's massive cannons flared with a blue light, and then fire. A beam of pure destruction surged from its chest, racing toward the first Tazarun warship. The beam struck the ship in the heart, obliterating it in an instant. The vessel didn't even have time to react, its massive frame evaporating into space before the fragments could scatter. The explosion sent a shockwave rippling through the fleet, and for a moment there was silence. The Tazarun ships hesitated, unsure of what to do next. But then, as the Titan's massive form advanced, the remaining ships began to open fire. "We need to get out of here," Rika said, her eyes darting back to Valrin. "They're going to be overwhelmed, but we don't know what the Titan will do next." Valrin clenched his fists. "No, we've come too far. We have to make sure the Tazarun don't get away." The Tazarun ships were now regrouping, trying to form a defensive formation, but it was too late. The Titan was already advancing toward them, its every step causing the ground to tremble and the sky to darken. With another powerful blast, it fired again, striking one of the Tazarun motherships. The ship's shields flickered for a moment, but they were no match for the energy coming from the Titan's cannons. The ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light, and the remnants of its hull were scattered in all directions. The remaining ships attempted to retaliate, firing all their weapons at once, but the Titan simply raised its energy shield. The enemy fire bounced off harmlessly, barely making a dent. With a fluid motion, the Titan brought its arm down like a hammer, slicing through the remaining fleet with terrifying precision. Valrin and his crew had seen their fair share of space battles, but what they were witnessing now was unlike anything they had ever imagined. The Tazarun, once feared and respected throughout the galaxy, were being destroyed in mere moments by a force they had never seen before. This is what they meant by "do not engage," Valrin muttered to himself. Earth's fleet isn't a myth. It's real, and it's unstoppable. Elsewhere, deep within the Tazarun flagship, Captain Verka clenched his fists, watching the chaos unfold on his ship's monitors. His soldiers scrambled, trying desperately to keep their ship intact as the Titan's destructive power swept across their fleet. "Captain, we need to retreat," a trembling officer shouted, his voice filled with fear. "There's nothing we can do. The Titan is too powerful. It's destroying everything." Verka's teeth ground together as he glared at the monitor. "I will not run. We must find a way to destroy it. We cannot allow Earth's wrath to consume us." But in his heart, even Verka knew the truth. They were outmatched. The Tazarun had never encountered anything like this before. They had underestimated Earth and its ancient weapon. And now, they were paying the price. The Titan moved forward, each step sending shockwaves across the battlefield. It was relentless, unstoppable, and it wasn't finished yet. One by one, the Tazarun ships fell. The remaining few tried to flee, but the Titan was faster. With a final, powerful energy blast, it took down the last ship in the fleet, sending it spiraling into the atmosphere of the nearby planet. The battle was over. The Titan, its mission complete, lowered its weapons and ceased its advance. It stood still, towering over the battlefield, its red eyes glowing in the dimming light of the shattered sky. Its task was done. Valron stood with his team, staring at the ruins of the Tazaruan fleet. The reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The Earth's Guardian had just decimated an entire alien fleet, and there was no doubt in his mind that this was only the beginning. He could feel Rika's hand on his shoulder, the weight of their survival weighing heavily on them both. "It's over," she said quietly. "But the real question is, what comes next?" Valron turned toward the horizon, where the Titan now stood motionless. The ancient war machine was more than a protector of Earth. It was a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it was pushed to its limits. What comes next is a new beginning. The battle for Earth had only just begun, and it was clear. No one, no alien species, would dare challenge humanity again. The battlefield lay silent for a moment. Dust and sparks hung in the air as the last echoes of the Tazaruan fleet's destruction faded away. The Titan, Earth's ancient guardian, stood tall and motionless in the center of the ruined facility. Its glowing red eyes slowly dimmed to a steady, watchful light. Around it, broken alien ships drifted in the chaos of battle, and the ground bore fresh scars from the Titan's rampage. Commander Valron and his crew gathered near a large observation window on the edge of the facility. They watched in silent awe as the Titan lowered its massive frame. They had fought long and hard to uncover Earth's hidden power, and now the truth was unfolding before them. But even as they stood there, more changes began to take place on the scared surface of Earth. A low rumble started deep beneath the ground. The rumble grew louder, and soon a second signal reached their scanners, a series of energy pulses that mimicked a heartbeat. Valron exchanged a look with Rika. They had known Earth was not entirely dead. Now it was clear. The Guardian they had woken was only part of a much larger force. From the ruined remains of a shattered hangar not far from the facility, smaller shapes began to rise. First, a single ancient warship emerged from the Earth, its hull covered in moss and cracked by time. Then, one by one, other vessels started to lift from beneath the surface, their outlines shimmering in the early light. It was as if Earth was giving birth to a forgotten fleet, one that had slept for centuries and was now stirring awake. Valron's heart pounded. "They are coming," he said softly. His voice was mixed with wonder and trepidation. The screen in front of him displayed several old human warships emerging from underground bunkers and hidden docks. Each ship bore the same symbol, a simple, bold design that spoke of human resilience and ingenuity. It was the mark of a civilization that had once fought for its survival and had never truly been defeated. Rika's eyes widened. "Our records never showed this," she said, shaking her head slowly. "We were told that Earth was lost, that its people had been wiped out. But these ships, they show that humanity had a last stand. They prepared for this moment." In the distance, a voice came over the comms, clear, calm, and powerful. It was not the voice of an individual, but the collective echo of an ancient AI system. "Welcome, Commander Valron," the voice intoned. "You have awakened our legacy. We are Earth's fleet. We have waited long for the call to arise." Valron took a deep breath. He stepped forward to the comms panel and replied, "Identify yourself." The voice continued, "We are the remnants of Earth's final defense. We were built to protect our home when all hope was lost. For centuries, we have lain dormant beneath the surface. Now, with the threat of the Tazaruan eliminated, we awaken to reclaim our place among the stars." As the words sank in, the ancient warships began to power up. Their engines hummed with life, and energy shields flared around them. One by one, they lifted fully into the sky, aligning themselves in formation. The sight was both awe-inspiring and frightening, a forgotten fleet rising like a sleeping giant. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, Captain Verka of the Tazaruan struggled to regroup. His forces had been decimated, and the devastation wrought by Earth's Guardian left him trembling behind the remnants of his command deck. He stared at the monitors in disbelief. "We underestimated them," he growled. "We did not know Earth still held power." His officers could only nod in grim silence as they saw the new ships take shape and begin to move in a tight formation. The Tazruan had long considered themselves the masters of the galaxy, but now they faced an enemy they had forgotten, a power that once belonged to a species they believed extinct. Back aboard the Vanguard, Valrin and his crew watched as the ancient fleet, bathed in a gentle blue light, moved in perfect formation above the horizon. The battlefield slowly cleared, and an uneasy calm replaced the chaos of the recent conflict. Valrin looked at his crew, seeing a mixture of relief, hope, and wonder on their faces. "Today, we witnessed something no one believed could exist," Valrin said over the comms. "Earth has risen again. We must learn from our past and join together with those who have survived, hidden, or forgotten." Rika replied, "Our mission has changed. This is not just about exploration or conflict anymore. It is about understanding who we are and why Earth was forced into hiding." The ancient AI's voice echoed once more. "We are the guardians of Earth's legacy. We have been waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to reclaim its destiny. The stars have forgotten our story, but now we remind them. Let this be the new dawn for all who call Earth home." Valrin knew that this was only the beginning. The awakening of Earth's fleet would send ripples through the galaxy. Other species would notice this resurgence, and new alliances would form as ancient secrets came to light. The Galactic Council would have to reconsider their old records, and those who once scorned the idea of human resilience would now face a reality they could not ignore. As the ancient warships continued their ascent, filling the sky with their majestic presence, Valrin felt a renewed sense of purpose. The forgotten voices of the past, the distress signal that had once been dismissed, had led to this moment, a moment of rebirth, unity, and defiance against the darkness that had once threatened to erase humanity. In that quiet moment, with the new fleet hovering above the ruined battlefield, and the echoes of a long-forgotten past resonating through the air, the future of Earth and its people was being rewritten. The galaxy would soon learn that even in the face of annihilation, hope could rise again. Valrin turned to his crew and said, "Prepare to send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them that Earth is not lost. Our legacy endures, and we are ready to stand together." The message began to transmit, carrying with it the truth of a people who refused to be forgotten. As the ancient warships moved into formation and the newly awakened fleet prepared to make its presence known across the stars, the galaxy braced itself for a change that would alter the balance of power forever. And in that decisive moment, as a new chapter began for the survivors of Earth, one fact was clear. They had answered a distress call that no one expected. And in doing so, they had awakened the most dangerous and resilient fleet the galaxy had ever known.